On the last episode of this Vienna Game series, we took a look at the Vienna Game main line and also when black accepts the gambit on f4. However, on today's episode, we're going to explore the move d6, declining the gambit itself, thus the name Vienna Gambit declined. In this situation, black has the downside of not being able to develop the bishop into an active square. The black's dark squared bishop is going to be very passive, and also for white, eventually the white's goal is to open up the f file such that the rook can come and use this open file in the future. So those are some of the ideas of the Vienna Gambit decline. So without further ado, let's look at some of the sample lines of the opening so that you can get an advantage early on. So when black plays d6, you're going to immediately play the move knight f3. Now it does feel very logical to play a move like bishop c4, targeting this pawn at f7. However, instead of, oops, a little spoiler there. Instead of utilizing this diagonal, I would recommend immediately applying pressure to the central pawn on e5. So playing knight f3 is a good move. In this case, there are lots of different moves that black can play. Knight c6 is a very common move. Bishop g4 is a common move. And also bishop e7 is a common move. I will cover all of these. If you guys want to see a specific line first, you guys can use the timestamp on the timeline here. However, the first move that I'm going to feature on this video is going to be e takes f5. Now this seems very logical at first because it seems like you are trying to prevent me from taking this by taking it yourself. It prevents me from taking on e5 by taking it yourself. And also this kind of resembles the king's gambit in a way. However, the difference is that black cannot play the move g5 because there's a knight on f3, and also the queen is not protecting the square on g5. So this is a pretty common move that occurs in this position. However, when this happens, you're going to immediately play d4, immediately striking the center. And after that, black can again play the move knight c6. However, let's look at this move first. Bishop e7, trying to castle, is also a very, very common move. And after this happens, you're just going to retake on f4, developing the bishop. And also, after that, black will castle. And then you're going to play bishop d3. Now, the reason why you should not play the move bishop c4 is because of the center fork trick. The knight can take the pawn on e4, and after you take with your knight, the pawn can can double attack, can fork your bishop and your knight, regaining material in the long run. So it is likely that you're going to end up with a pawn down in this situation, so you have to play bishop d3. However, it is always worth keeping in mind that this diagonal can also be very strong in the long run. However, based on my personal experience, putting the bishop on this diagonal can also lead to very scary attack for white in the long run as well. Now with that in mind, let's keep going. So after bishop d3, white can always come in and pin this knight with the idea of playing knight c6 and targeting this in the future. However, when this is played, you're just going to castle, move the queen around, and start targeting the king side. And the engine evaluates this position as 0.7, plus 0.7 for white, which is very, very juicy for white. Let's take a look at what will happen if black plays knight c6 on this position rather than playing bishop e7. So if black plays knight c6, what we're going to do is we're just going to recapture on f4. And if white decides to pin your knight to the queen, we're not going to play just a normal move like bishop e2, but we're going to play an engine prepared move, which is going to be queen d3. Now, this is a very natural move, so even if you forget, I guess it will be pretty easy to find. Um, but basically, what you're doing is you're getting out of the pin, you're getting ready to castle long, and also if bishop takes, we can always take with the G pawn, consolidating the center even more. And although this looks like a scary move, we always have um, Queen B5 check, winning this knight. So if this happens, black's gonna be kind of stuck. So let's say black feels stuck and frustrated. So let's say black takes. We're going to take with the G pawn, and the engine best move in this case is D5, I believe, trying to destabilize the center. But you're going to castle long here, and you're going to continue your attack. Engine evaluates this position as 3.6 advantage for white. Although it seems like the materials are even, the imbalance in development and in this position just makes white extremely strong, and the position basically plays itself. Now, with that in mind, let's go take a look at a different variation of the Vienna Gambit decline. So we looked at takes. We looked at takes, but now let's look at what is the engine's best move. Now, as you can see, if I turn on Stockfish here, engine's best move is to play bishop e7. Now, bishop e7 actually looks very passive, and it is very passive. I mean, the d6 variation itself is a very passive variation. So the entire idea of e7 is just to castle very early on. So what we're going to do is we're going to just develop very naturally. We can develop to bishop c4. I actually like that idea a lot. But the engine, I have to give you an engine recommendation here. But an engine recommendation is to play e2. And then if black plays c6, we're going to hit the center like this. This is the exact reason why white suggests playing e2 here, because without e2, if we develop to places like this, this is always a lurking idea, trying to attack on the knight on f3 and just trying to play it like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit the center in this case, and knight's going to actually take on d4. That's the engine best move, and we're going to take back here, and then after takes, what we're going to have is a very, very strong white center, getting ready to push on the king side. So after castles, what we're going to do is we're going to start rolling these pawns down, try to crack open this entire position, and just attacking that way. Now let's take a look at what will happen if if black decides to play bishop g4 in this position. In this case, we're just going to immediately block this pin by playing bishop e2 with the idea of castling. And black plays knight c6 here. And what we're going to do is castle very early on, trying to reinforce the defender on this square. And it looks very natural or very aggressive for black to play the move knight d4 here, but it's just a very losing move because of this. Okay, yeah, because of this very reason, black is terrible right now. We're up a pawn, and engine evaluates this position as plus 2.2. So that's why d4 really doesn't work in this situation. But in a lot of cases, black is just going to play bishop e7, completing the final minor piece development and getting ready to castle. After this, what we're going to do is we're going to play the move d3, stabilizing the center. Black castles here. And then we're going to play the move king h1. It's kind of a waiting move, but also it gets away from this very nasty diagonal. Although the bishop is closed at this position, it can always open up eventually, and this check could be very, very annoying in the future. So it's just a very long-term engine move to play h1. And after that, what black likes to do is play queen d7, connecting the rooks and also adding protection to the bishop, possible bishop sack in the future as well. Yeah, like if I decide to play h3 in this position, I can already see a very scary attack coming. Like black can already secure a draw if you play h3 here. So it's in the bare minimum, it's a draw here. So what the engine actually suggests in this position is to play e1 and trying to go to these diagonals. After e1, f takes, then bishop takes, or e takes and then bishop takes, and then bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3, knight f3 targeting this, queen g3, knight takes, and then queen takes. This is all theory. This is all engine theory. So up to this point, it's very intuitive. The good thing about the Vienna Gambit declined is that there are very limited good moves. So as long as you recognize the pattern here, the pattern is keeping the king safe away from this diagonal, utilizing the open F file. As long as you recognize that pattern, even though if you don't remember the specific orders, you should be able to play on from this position. That's the beauty about the Vienna Gambit decline. That's the downside of the black position, because it's so passive, the moves are very limited. You can basically force whatever variation that you want. Like this variation, which is basically plus 0.6 for white, which is very good. Finally, I think we need to cover this move, knight c6. Now, after knight c6, what I like to do is just immediately, brutally striking the center. And I believe this is the engine best move as well. Yeah, just striking the center. Now, the entire idea of this is to, again, decentralize the center pawns. Because if we take here, then the queen gets developed. So what black does usually is try to fianchetto in this line, on this line. But again, in this case, we're just going to take here, trying to ruin the pawn structure, and then try to develop as naturally as possible. And this position, the Stockfist evaluates as plus 0.3. So it's not as obvious on how to play this position, but I think in a practical point of view, I guess in a practical point of view, it's going to be very, very interesting, very fun to play, because we have all these ideas about pushing the pawns, and the imbalance in this position just makes it looks very fun to me, at least. So when this happens, so when black plays knight c6, I would recommend immediately striking the center. When black takes, we obviously know that if he takes this way, then we're going to take with the f pawn, and then we're going to have a transposition. So it's worth noting that. But if he takes this way, we're going to take like this, and then so on and on and on. Finally, next week, I'll be viewing Vienna Game not in the perspective of the f6 when black plays f6, but in the perspective when black plays the c6 variation. Now, this includes the copycat variation, which is very, very interesting. It gets very spicy very quick. It also features this variation where there's where it's called the Bishop Vienna hybrid. A very cool name, and also it's a very interesting idea to play this. So stay tuned for more, basically. If you guys don't want to miss it, make sure to hit the subscribe and the bell button if you don't want to miss any of my contents. And if you guys enjoyed this episode of the Vienna Game, and if you found it helpful, please either write a comment or simply smash the like button. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.